morning, everybody, and welcome to this. Now, it's the second of our teachings on bodhicitta in practice, Practice Bodhicitta, also more or less the same as the 6 Paramita. And so today we're mainly focusing on the Paramita, the transcendent perfection of generosity. So let's start with a really, really, really good motivation, turning our hearts in love and in care to all of our fellow beings, and especially those who form part of our own lives, our own karma, who've helped us, who've hurt us. They are so important in our own story, and it's so vital that in this development of bodhicitta in practice, that we are following our bodhisattva path for all of them, with a very special attention to them, as we'll see today in the teachings on generosity. Our gift to other beings is our Dharma practice. Later on, when you become Dharma teachers, your Dharma teachings, and those with whom we have these strong karmic connections are very important in that story. But then beyond that, we are here for all beings throughout space in all their amazing variety. So with those thoughts in mind, then let's do a few prayers. Sonje chodong soje chonam la jancho badun dane chapsanche agi jinso jipe sanam je drola penchera sonje drupara sho semchen tamche dewa dong dewe jodong den para choche dongal dong dongal ji jodong tralwara choche dongal me pe dewa tampa dong nin tralwara choche Nyerin chadan netan tralwe tang yom chempola ne para choche Deya ta shame shamawati shameta shatrom kore marazite karota ke ore Tetsovati oloyane beshudan male malapana ye kukure kaka grasana Om muki para mukiya muki shametani sawa grahabanda namini grihita Sawa pava pravadina vimukta marapasha satapita buddha mudra anutkateta sava mari Butsarita parishuddhi bigat santu sava marakama. Walden sawe lama rinpoche tagi chivora pende denshola. Kadrin chempo gone jezonte kuson toje ngadrup saldo. So thank you very much. The teaching we had last week about the Paramita, the transcendent perfections in general, is very, very important. Today and in the coming 5-6 teachings on Practice Bodhicitta, we will enter into the details of generosity and right conduct and all the others. But those details are the details about the thing, like today, generosity. It's the Buddha's general teachings on generosity, what it means. So we explore the scope, what it covers, and then within the various areas it covers, the details about how to do it properly. But those general things, being generous, practicing right conduct, practicing meditation, diligence, and forbearance, are not paramita. They are virtues, good things to do, wonderful, but they are not paramita. So last week we saw in detail, and maybe you'll remember, two things, two areas make something transcendent, something that will take us to enlightenment to help all sentient beings. That's what bodhicitta is all about. How do you awaken your mind fully, purely, so that you are of most use to as many other beings as possible? Only paramita does that, not virtue alone. So when we study karma, we see that virtue leads to better rebirths, more comfortable, fortunate rebirths. But rebirth can go on and on and on. It's not enlightenment to help all beings. So we must practice virtue for our own sake, because if we practice non-virtue, we are just being utterly stupid, setting up suffering for ourselves in the future. It's like a boomerang. It's like a boomerang. You throw it away, but it comes round and it comes back and could hit you on the head. Boing. So we need virtue, but virtue, and we need the basis of virtue and good karma, part of the two accumulations, to get to enlightenment. But virtue alone, meditation alone, being forbearing alone, being diligent alone, practicing vows alone, being generous alone, will not make you Buddha or me Buddha. So we need to really get last week's teaching. Greatness and purity make it paramita. The greatness, you'll remember, it's made great in three ways. Jhana, primordial wisdom, makes it as noble, as elevated as it can be. Great in that sense. Prajna, vast, deep wisdom, makes it as enormous as it can be. You know, when we practice generosity, for instance, we have the welfare of all beings in mind. We have the blessing of our gurus and all the Buddhas in mind, and so on. Our mind is as vast and deep, and on a relative truth level, functioning as best it can be. So it's made great by prajna. And thirdly, by dedication, systematic sharing of the goodness before ego gets its paws on it. That makes it great, because it makes it everlasting. So when those three are there, our practice of virtue is great, and then we need it to be not just great, but pure. So we saw that compassion, deepest, unconditional, greatest compassion, makes it pure, but compassion alone won't make it pure. We need the wisdom of voidness. And you saw last week the 4 seals of voidness. What I said was okay, it does apply, but usually I got it a bit, let's not say wrong, but the classical version isn't quite what I said last week, so I better correct that straight away. Remember, 4 things need to be recognized for their voidness, for their interdependence and impermanence. In generosity, it's the body of the giver. So you're present, giving your time, giving stuff. Body of the giver. Your own mind, the mind of the giver. Body is void, mind is void. And then the gift, or the action of giving, is void. Voidness. And then 4th, the end goal, enlightenment, is voidness. It's not something fixed. It's not a thing. So we learn about those 4 voidnesses. So when there's voidness and compassion, it's pure. It's a lot to ask of you and of me. And we're working on it, and we're working on it kindly with ourselves, because we know this is the benchmark of utter perfection, but that's what we're heading for, and that is paramita. To try and help get the point across, I'd like to give you one of Ken's silly examples. So this isn't from Gampopa or anybody illustrious. It's kind of me, okay? You're in a busy shopping mall, a really busy, stuffy shopping mall, bustling with people, really tightly packed. And also there's probably a guy with a cleaning machine sitting on it, driving around and pushing people out the way. And there's a lot of noise and there's pipe music. And you get a phone call, which is telling you how to get out. Where are you just now? Okay, you need to go to the end of that corridor, get the lift down, then do this, do that. Except your reception keeps getting cut off and people keep bumping into you, and then things are happening. So our lives, the samsara, is kind of busy. Our samsaric mind is busy. But we've got these messages coming in from the Buddha's teachings, from our own meditation practice, as we get moments of much clearer seeing, which is saying, this is the way out. This is the way out. So when we manage to get it all together, and in one moment, we have the greatness. There is some jhana, there is some prajna, there is dedication. We are filled with compassion from our hearts because we care for everybody. We really want to do something to take away the world's suffering. And then we realize the dreamlike nature, the illusory nature of where we are in that shopping mall. So anyway, last week's teaching on what makes paramita is vital. Now, what we will do today as we explore generosity is to go quite systematically through Gampopa's teachings. I can't do better than Gampopa. Normally, I like to just sit and let it come out, the way I've learned it, the way I've memorized it. But I think Gampopa's teaching is so precise and it covers so many important points that we're better off following it. And then also you can refer to your own copy of Gampopa afterwards and check things out and look at the details. So I suppose we better get on with that. But before we do, what I was just saying about asking a lot of ourselves, setting a very high standard. Don't let it dishearten you. Now, when we go further on in the paramita and we get to number 4, diligence, it's all about this. It goes very deep about not being disheartened, having courage and joy in our Dharma practice, no matter what life throws at us. But we set the bar to perfection at the beginning, and then we accept ourselves as apprentice bodhisattvas, and we do our best. It's the secret. You do your best. You will fall down. It doesn't matter. You fall down, you learn to pick yourself up. That's the important thing. There's a lovely, maybe some of you are far too young for this, but these old Hollywood musicals, there was one which says, pick yourself up, dust yourself down, start all over again. We really need to be able to do that. That's how you learn. That's how people who learn any trade, who learn to do anything, learn. You get it wrong, and through your mistakes, you learn how to get it right. It's not an excuse, but we shouldn't be disheartened. Shouldn't be disheartened when we realize what a huge task we're undertaking. We should let that give us a bit of muscle. I remember one of the first, very, very, very first Dharma teachings I had one-on-one, just casually in a conversation, was from a Gelukpa talker in Dharamsala in 1970. So we're Buddhists, we know about impermanence, precious human life, and live in the moment and all of that. He said, sure. But he said, there's another way of looking at this. You've been messing up for lifetimes upon lifetimes. So now you're going to get it right. You're going to give it all the time it needs, as many lifetimes as it needs. But now you're going to get it right. Don't rush it. Don't panic. Really. And I don't know if I conveyed the feeling, but for me, it was, oh, right. So to find this balance where we don't use it as a kind of lazy Dharma person's excuse, oh, I'm just a beginner, I've got plenty of time anyway. We are diligent, but at the same time, we don't get discouraged because we know it's a huge and wonderful task that we've set ourselves. So now with generosity, if you saw the Facebook advert for today's course, you'll see that the word originally was dana. And so we know the word dana is come into the English language, the root in our word donation, don. In French, don means a gift, donner, to give. So it's generally thought of as giving. And I'm sure when you hear the word giving, words conjure up images in us and associations. We think of somebody giving something. So the origin of the word dan, it seems, according to the linguists, is not so much the sense of, how can you say, a positive action, giving something. It's in the sense of removing, sweeping away, clearing away. And what we need to understand, and this is vital for the paramita of generosity, is it's not so much a question of giving, and here language is on our side for a change. It's a question of giving up. Giving up. We are sweeping aside ego and all of everything that comes under ego and our acquired habits from this life, from past lives, that have made our mind so limited, so afraid, so locked up in the me bubble. Later on, we'll look at some verses from Milarepa, and we'll see how he presents that to quite an eminent scholar in very simple terms, the essence of generosity. And in one of Milarepa's songs, he puts his finger on the very essence of each paramita. And he says, other than getting rid of me, there's no other generosity. So it's not a question of what you give and how much you give, and that somebody who's able to give a fortune is going to be practicing better generosity than somebody who doesn't have the resources. It's all about whether your action in the moment is sweeping away, taking away the power of ego and self-centeredness and delusion, or not. That's what generosity is about, dana. Each moment. You don't have to be giving. Last week it was always a cup of tea and a biscuit, or a cup of coffee and a biscuit. You don't have to be giving to practice generosity. You need to be removing ego from this living, present moment. Then you are practicing a generosity. That is your gift to everyone, because when the self-centeredness, when the me habit and the fear that goes with it is gone, then our mind is open to the vastness, the interdependence of all of us being part of the fabric of everyone and everything. That is the greatest gift to everybody. That is the meaning of the Paramita, of generosity, and it's in the etymology of dhan, clearing away. So then, once we've seen the etymology, then what does Khenpoken do? Let's go through it. He takes us to, first of all, with all of the paramitas in his teaching, he says, what's wrong if you don't have it? What's right if you've got it? So now we're coming down from that overview of generosity and sweeping away self-centeredness, and sweeping away self-centeredness with greatness and purity. We're coming now into giving itself. So when we look at generosity, it says, if you aren't generous, what will happen to you? You'll more than likely be born in the lower realms, an animal, or if you're greedy, a spirit, a ghost, a desolate spirit, or if your self-centeredness damages others badly, then even in the hell realms. That's why whoever are in those states, the psychotic states of hell, the desolate misery of the ghosts and spirits, and then the confusion and the being driven by their emotions of animals, that state. Why are they there? We only see the animals generally. I hope most of you aren't visiting hell realms or ghost realms, because they're you need to be equipped if you're going there, and most of us don't. But we do see animals, and they can just fight each other, rip each other apart for food. And so how did they end up there? It's because they didn't realize the potential for nobility which is in this human existence, where we can understand service and humility and the sacred nature of every moment, of everything and of everyone, and to respect that and to try and serve it. This service is the nature of generosity. So if instead we are just clinging tightly to self-interest, then that will force us always to exploit others, exploit the world like we're doing now, the planet, use other people emotionally, psychologically, for our own well-being. So if we don't have this generosity of spirit, we're not going to be reborn. Just forget thinking, oh, well, I'm human now, I suppose I'll be reborn human next time. All of our teachings on precious human existence are to say, wake up. It doesn't work like that. You're cruising on past good karma just now, but it will run out. It's like somebody on a spending spree. All of a sudden, your credit card's got nothing left on it. So if we don't have this nobility of using our life as a gift for others, then we cannot expect to be reborn human. On the contrary, if we are generous in the true sense of generosity, we make our presence in this world a gift to others. We care for them. We serve in every way we can as we learn. Then that will bring us, and we'll see at the end when we look at the results of generosity, that will bring us a good rebirth, a human rebirth with the resources we need and with a body which is helpful to us, and so on and so on. So Khenpoken says you can't do without this. And just as an aside, we get lots of really classy teachings these days online, on Facebook, and you can be up there with Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And you might well have a feel or an understanding for what's going on. But without the power of generosity, kindness to others day after day after day, you just won't have the juice to get reborn, no matter how clever your intellect was and how much you thought of yourself as a sort of Mahamudra practitioner or Dzogchen practitioner. There's no way out of it. Love and kindness and service. I love in Christianity, the word for generosity, caritas, from which we get the word charity. Caritas means love. It's how we express our love of other beings in service. So charity, in that sense, is your expression of love. So now we've considered a little bit, and to consider this more, we need to go to the teachings on karma, cause and effect, and explore them to understand this better. But now we know for sure you need it. There's no magic, there's no shortcut. Now you know you need generosity. Then say, what is the essence? So when in these teachings it says essence, it means here comes the definition. And please learn this by heart so that you know for yourself. And if somebody asks you, well, what exactly is generosity in Buddhism? You can say, well, it's this. It is to have a spontaneous and unattached mind. Spontaneous and unattached mind, and informed by such a mind to give that which is appropriate to be given. First thing is the mind. Those two things, spontaneous and unattached. And then when you're in that state of mind and you give what's appropriate, we're going to look into that in a second, then that's generosity. Spontaneous mind mainly means that you're giving because there's a need for something. A situation crops up, somebody needs something. You can provide, so there you go, you're giving. And unattached means you're not giving with an agenda. No agenda. One thing I notice, I sometimes talk about, is the invisible balance sheet that we keep running all the time, like with the people you live with, the people you work with, the people you meet in life. It's kind of, you owe me a bit more than I owe you. I did this for you and I've done that for you and you haven't done so much for me. And there's kind of, and then because of that, there's a power situation between people, because there's this feeling of you owe me more than I owe you. And then sometimes we can do something and it's a nice thing to do, but then also somewhere in the background, it's like I scored one. So we've moved another bead on our abacus to in this unseen emotional, psychological balance sheet between people. A lot of life is to do with that. So giving without attachment means without expectation, without agenda. My own teacher, Akron Rinpoche, some things he spoke of so often, and he gave advice to people so often, and no expectation was a big one. No expectation of return, no agenda. You're not giving to win over somebody, you're not winning to score points. In the Mahayana, we're not winning in order that our future rebirth will be better. We know it will be, but that's not the reason. We're giving because, as it says, spontaneously there's a need that's presented itself. And we're giving the right thing at the right time. No strings attached. And then as we learn to meditate well, very well, we don't cling to the previous moment. We don't anticipate the next moment. We can just give spontaneously and then move on. It's finished. We're not then thinking, Oh, I did pretty good there. I was really generous. Oh, well, give yourself a medal, score 20 karmic points, and sort of pickle in the sensation for a moment. We learn through meditation to move on. So there's meditation in generosity. There's all sorts of other paramita. But anyway, that's the definition: to have a spontaneous and unattached mind, and then informed by such a mind, to give what's appropriate. So then, how can we give? What is generosity? Khenpoken tells us we have 3 areas. We can give stuff, material generosity. And most people, when they think of generosity, I suppose that's the thing that comes to mind. Giving money, giving stuff. The second area is giving, and these days it's usually time, our time. But giving our time to support somebody else emotionally, psychologically. It says to protect those who are in fear, to comfort those who are sad, bereaved, and so on. And time is such a precious commodity. I know for myself, people I know who help other people, when the phone rings and you've got person A on the other end, you've got a 1.5 hour phone call at least. If you finished in an hour, you've done pretty well. And the person will probably feel they've been kind to you because they've not kept you the usual 1.5 hours. And you're prepared for it to go through to 2 hours because somehow, whatever the conversation is, they need your help. You've got to get to the point where they feel helped and they feel happy and everything feels more relaxed. And they can say thank you. And you feel mission accomplished. And you just can't say, oh, look, I'm really sorry. I've got to go now. I know we've only been talking for 1 hour and 3/4, but I must go. So sometimes giving time, and of course you're giving your friendship, you're giving whatever they need, however you can help them. But it's a very precious gift for us because our time is so called upon in many ways. It's absolutely amazing to meet all cultures. I remember my early years of traveling where people have time. So many hours in the day, such a simple life. Time to hang out, yarn, and it's not looking at the watch all the time and all the other things I must do today. So the second area is giving it's called the gift of fearlessness, actually, because we're helping other people not be so disturbed. But anyway, it's giving of ourselves to help another being, usually one-on-one. And then the third area is the gift of Dharma. And this is sharing Dharma teachings. And then in particular, this area is for Dharma teachers saying how to do it. So we've got 3 areas. The first 2, Khenpoken says, are really giving stuff, giving our time and support, are helpful in this life, the temporary. They're very, very needed, but they don't last. You give food, you give any kind of material support, it only lasts a while. There's this thing, isn't there? It always makes me laugh. Give a man a fish and he's not hungry for a few hours. Teach a man to fish and they're gathering murderous karma for the rest of their life. Is kind of the Buddhist way of putting it. So, giving food, giving support is temporary. Giving our emotional support, protecting people, caring for them is temporary. It's for this life. Usually it's only for hours, weeks, but definitely finishes at death. Giving Dharma is longer, because if there's the real gift of Dharma, it's an investment for many, many, many lives. And it also makes a connection between the teacher and the receiver, which will last for many lives. It's sowing a very, very, very special seed. So we have those three areas of giving, all important, but the last one is the most important. Now, if we just take a little aside here, parenthesis, a footnote. Many people these days argue about what they call engaged Buddhism. Wouldn't we be better off out there protesting or out there doing social work? Because there's such a need, there's such poverty, there's such a need for help, and there aren't enough kind people to go around. And of course, if we can, remember it says generosity is spontaneous. If we're called upon to do that, and our karma and the result of our past prayers is to do that, that is wonderful. But then some people say, well, then isn't, like Milarepa did, going off into a cave, isn't that a cop-out? Kind of too easy. You just go and sit and you think, oh, I'm doing this for all sentient beings. It's worth thinking about. It will help us to think about that. So it isn't, because once we understand that the gift of Dharma is giving somebody the tools to help themselves. It's not a temporary help from you to them. It's giving them something to help themselves. It's like we see in humanitarian aid. We're not just bringing in money and stuff that people often don't need. Real good humanitarian aid helps people within their own context to make a better future for themselves. So Dharma is that spirit. We're giving somebody something so they can help themselves. But in order to be able to give that gift, a Dharma teacher needs to have a mind which is stable, a mind which is wise with the teachings of the Buddha, and a mind which is well versed in knowing what to give to a person at the right time. Now, without retreat, without a lot of intense meditation practice, there's no way that any of us will become like that. So if we want to give the greatest gift, then there is a very good argument for spending quality time, months, years, working with our mind until we have a mind which is a fortress of goodness, a great, like Fort Knox of Dharma to give to other people. And usually in our Vajrayana path, it's in dialogue with our teacher that we know when to study, when to go into retreat, or when to be engaged in the world, in our families, in our life. There is no one, you must do this. It depends on you and your karma and your teacher's wise life guidance. So now we move on to material generosity, and there's lots of very classical teachings. We'll rocket through them. It's just facts. You'll find them in the book. It doesn't need sort of unpacking with a deep explanation, but I do need to go through it. So, generosity, giving stuff. Is all giving of stuff generosity? No. There's right generosity, which is the basis for the Paramita generosity, and there is wrong giving. Let's not call it generosity, let's choose another word, wrong giving. So we'll start, as the Buddha always starts in his teaching, by showing us what's harmful, because we need to get rid of it. So improper giving, there are 4 types. The motivation is improper. The gift is improper. The receiver is improper. Or the way you give is improper. So these are 4 things we need to keep an eye out for, and then not do them. So first, improper motivation. Improper, not the best, not right. Two areas. One is a wrong motivation, and the other is not the best motivation. Both of them not paramita motivation. A wrong motivation is when you are giving for the sake of your own ego. Giving with expectation, giving with return in mind, giving to look good. Let's not go there in detail, but there are quite a few foundations these days. And when you look at the surface and the propaganda and the publicity, they're doing so much to help people, giving billions. But a lot of it's to do with tax relief and covering up with the front a lot of shadier areas that are going on behind, and so on and so on. So the motivation should be the Bodhisattva's motivation. We'll see when we come next week to right conduct. The essence that Milarepa puts his finger on. All of right conduct boils down to one thing. No agenda. Nothing going on behind the scenes. What you see is what you get. So the motivation is purely because there's need, and because there's a need in you to learn to give of yourself more and more if ever you're going to become Buddha. That's the way that our fortress of ego is gradually eroded away. So we avoid wrong motivation. There's a lot to learn just in this one point. And then, of course, I mean, there could be much worse motivation if you pay somebody to go and murder somebody for you. I mean, theoretically, you've given them $2,000. Was that generosity? No way. It could be as bad as that. So anyway, giving to look good, that's not generosity. That's nurturing your ego. It's not generosity. It's not dana. It's not sweeping away what's causing all the suffering. So then you shouldn't give, it says, weapons, snares, traps, things which will cause harm, even if somebody begs you for them and you think, oh, I ought to give. Yeah. I'm a Buddhist, somebody asked me, I must give. If it's something that's going to cause harm, then you shouldn't. Now, these days, these simple guidelines get impossible because you get things like ethical investment, unethical investment, and so on and so on. It leads to an awful lot of reflection. But then we need to understand the opposite. He said, if poison should benefit somebody, then poison should be given. You know, if let's take a very sharp knife, for instance. If a sharp knife, can cause damage, but it could also be used in the old days of bush surgery to save somebody's life. Poisonous plants can be used by somebody who knows medicinally. And I had a friend, he's dead now, he was a homeopath in France, and he was treating somebody who was in a dire emergency state. And what he did was to inject petrol into their buttocks, because he knew that the reaction caused by the injection of petrol would help them in the way there was. I don't know what sort of petrol it was, but he said it was spectacular because it worked. So normally if somebody says, give me a hypodermic and some petrol to inject somebody, you'd say, no way. But he knew what he was doing. In other words, with all these things, it's not straightforward. We need to really think about the motivation and the benefit of what is being given. Normally, we wouldn't chop off a finger, But it said if somebody's been bitten by a snake, then you may have to chop off their arm or a finger in order to save their lives. So we need to really reflect a lot of ethical decisions. So there's wrong motivation, inappropriate motivation, inappropriate gifts. There's inappropriate receivers. And it doesn't mean you, as a bodhisattva, you're obliged to give whatever somebody asks you to give. I remember when I was in Tibet, it wasn't me, it was a friend of mine. He had a very beautiful knife. It was a knife made by North American Indians with lovely turquoises laid into the handle. And there was a Rinpoche who remained nameless in Tibet, who had a foible, let's say. I mean, his title was a Rinpoche, of collecting weapons. He had a whole arsenal of weapons and knives. And when my friend showed him his beautiful knife, immediately the look in the eyes and the whole implication was, oh, you ought to give me that. In other words, I'd like that for my collection. And my friend, who was very wise, but wise enough to see, no, this is not on, this is greed. It's nothing more than greed. And it would be better if I didn't give it, because everyone gives you what you want because you're called Rinpoche. So it's a very interesting situation. I was there watching it, my mind whirling round quickly. What's right? What's wrong here? This guy's a Rinpoche. Yeah, but he's greedy and it's a lovely knife. But then it was a really interesting situation. But it doesn't mean because somebody asks and you're a bodhisattva that you have to give. It says, if crazy people ask you for something, if ghosts and spirits want something of you, and sometimes they do, some sensitive Dharma minds are very aware of spirits and their predatory power. Sometimes we do give them in the Chö practice. We give of ourselves to spirits. But sometimes it's simply harmful. It's no good for us. It's no good for them. Then you're not obliged to give. So we need to reflect, learn more teachings, become aware of what's going on through our own meditative sensitivity to know the proper receivers and improper receivers. Now, there's quite a bit in there about when and when you shouldn't give away your body, because there are stories in the past of like the Buddha who gave his body to a tigress, hungry tigress. There are stories of bodhisattvas giving of themselves. So there are comments on that. We won't go into them today. We don't have time. But one area you might want to think about is, of course, organ donation when you die. Organ donation when you die. Big topic. Maybe we can come back to that in the question session at the end. For monks, it says you can give anything that you're able to give, but don't give away your robes, because naked monks going around is not going to do the Sangha any good. So even if somebody says, oh, that's a nice piece of cloth, you shouldn't feel obliged if you're a bodhisattva monk to strip off and then go around naked. So things like this, we use our common sense, we use our intelligence as best we can. Now, in terms of the proper receiver, the appropriate receiver, then there are 4 areas where we should make particular efforts to give of ourselves. The first one are those designated by their amazing qualities. These are our gurus and Dharma teachers. They are lights of the world. They are rare. So anything that we can give to keep them alive, to keep them healthy, to make their activity work better, is not just a gift to them, it's a gift to everybody. It's very special. And but there again, we need to use our intelligence. I remember at the Kajuman, seeing some people coming along, and they've had things made of gold and so on to offer to the Karmapa. It's, how can you say, it's a nice gesture, but it's because they want great merit. And does the Karmapa need yet more gold offering bowls or something like that? Not at all. So although it is good to offer to the three jewels and to temples, and Tibetans really did a lot of that. They saw their temples as their sort of communal wealth. The houses would be poor, but the local temple would be amazing, because over the centuries, everyone had given to make it wonderful for everybody. So to give to gurus, to the Buddha, to the Dharma by having books printed and text shared and so on, and to support the Sangha is very special. It makes special karma for us. But more than anything, you see, what is the paramita of dana sweeping away the ego? The ego resists recognizing the qualities of a teacher. Teacher is purer than you are. They're often in a space you can't even imagine of purity and awareness and sensitivity. So the reason we let go of money, that something that we have to sort of, because you can only just afford it, but that helps three jewels. That helps impress upon us the value of these things in our life, sweeps away egotism. So designated by their qualities, number one, designated by the benefit they brought us, and this is our parents. And this is huge. I could do a whole session on this. It's about childhood and how children don't know what they're receiving. And before childhood, it's the gift of life itself. When we see how vast life is, to be born human is an absolute miracle. It's so rare. And to be born a human with Dharma, like we are, is rare among rare. Our mother bore this body. Our parents supported it when it was helpless. When we could do nothing, we got food from the mother's breasts, food that they bought. We were protected from danger. The whole reason that we're alive. In one of Gampopa's texts, he says, the very reason that you're now alive and large as a yak, when at first you were a wriggling little worm, is because of the kindness of your parents. And of course, children don't see, they don't know this, how can they? And as they grow up, they get so used, parents have always been there, they've always provided. Sometimes it's only late in life when our parents are long gone that we even think about what went on. And we realize that we owe this gift of life to our parents, and often very, very much more. So even those who look back and thinking they had stinking parents, terrible, didn't have good karma, but you're alive. You've got Dharma, you've got this far, largely because of those early year gifts. And so whether we can do it in real life, or if they're long gone, dead, whether we do it through our prayers and dedications for them, it's very important that our generosity is directed towards our parents. Third area, so through their qualities, three jewels, through the benefit they've given us, the parents, and then through their sufferings, it's very important that we give to the poor, to the sick, all of those who are helpless and in need. They really desperately, desperately need help. And if we can give it, then it's the most natural thing in the world to do. And there are always people poorer than us, not so well, who need our support. So that's through their sufferings. And number 4, which is such an important part of the Bodhisattva teachings, is those who've hurt us. So it doesn't mean sending a check to your ex. Generosity towards those who hurt us is not that kind of generosity. It means we need to sweep away our ego and realize that the wounds we carry and the damage they did to us can be used so wonderfully through the Buddha's teachings to awaken our mind, to make our mind strong and wise, and sometimes to put us in a position to help other people. So what is called the enemy or the harma is very important in the Bodhisattva's path. And rather than the feeling that I wouldn't help you even if I could, we gradually move. We're apprentices. We need to do this step by step. But gradually we're moving towards a position of appreciation and gratitude towards those who've harmed us, because we can learn so much. In the end, they become our gurus. So our dana, our generosity towards them and helping them if we can, is very, very important. So then what next do we look at? We saw we've seen appropriate and inappropriate receivers and gifts and motivation, the actual way in which we give. So we have a quote here. It says, a bodhisattva should give joyfully, not take that and piss off. So whenever you get an opportunity, we do it with joy. There are interesting split seconds of times when we have the opportunity to give whatever it is, stuff or of ourselves, when we feel a reluctance. And we explore the mind, and we should know that it's only really generosity if we are joyful to give what we give. For instance, we've seen one area of giving is time. So that phone call comes and you've got 1.5 hours. So deep breath and find real joy. Relax. You're going to do it anyway. you're going to be there for 1.5 hours. Might as well make it joyful. Better for you, better for the other person. We give joyfully. That was number 1 on the list. It's quite interesting. Second, with respect. We never look down. We take a very obvious example. If somebody is begging, then we don't look haughtily on them. We don't give to get rid of them. We respect that person. Now, in Buddha nature teachings, we see the Buddha in that person. I know Mother Teresa, once she died, there was not everyone was happy, and they said, yeah, but she's not as good as she seemed. But the idea that every person that her nuns were serving, they were serving as if they were serving Jesus, the body of Jesus. They're beautiful. It's beautiful. When they wash down a dirty body, they're cleaning people who can't clean themselves when they've gone to the toilet and so on. It's like cleaning the body of the Buddha, cleaning the body of Jesus, that kind of service with respect, no matter what's in front of you, how unpleasant. We try to see the Buddha within, and we learn to do it with respect. And one thing that Akon Rinpoche set up in Nepal was a Rokpa soup kitchen in the winter months. Then people come to Kathmandu, to Bodhnath, to beg. And he set up a soup kitchen where hundreds and hundreds of people were served. And many of the volunteers who came from very upper class backgrounds or well-hooved backgrounds. And it was in the first days, an appalling experience for them. They'd never been with such dirt and people like, you're kind of cringing inside, but giving. And he had them taught to respect the other person. So by the end of their 2 weeks serving in the soup kitchen, they would be on friendly terms and talking and completely at ease. And they'd go back home to wherever it was, Switzerland or another country, and they'd be grateful because they said, I went there to give, to help as a benefactor, but in fact I received more than I gave. And learning to respect those we give to. Past best friends in past lives, past parents. We could never repay their gratitude from all the past lives. Future Buddhas who will help us and other beings. How can you ever repay that? Whatever they are just now, we don't see them through local eyes, but through the Bodhisattva eyes. Past parents, future Buddhas. With great and natural respect, we serve them. The next thing, he says, give joyfully, give with respect, and then give personally. And if you can, you don't download the responsibility onto somebody else. And of course, sometimes that's the best thing to do. But rather than, I can't be bothered. Because if you ask somebody else to do it, they might not be able to do it according to all these guidelines that we've heard. They might not make the best job of it. And we're learning dana to sweep away our own ego. So if our ego is getting rid of a task on somebody else, that's not dana, even though they're giving something to somebody. Give personally, give at the right time, and give without harming others. Give at the right time means give, in this case, when you've got it. And I remember this was something that Akon Rinpoche stressed a few times to me, and it kind of woke me up to something, is don't say, sorry, I'm thinking of something. Ken's silly references. Billy Bunter. I don't know if any of you remember Billy Bunter or know the stories of Billy Bunter, who was a rather corpulent schoolboy. And he was always saying, I'm expecting a check from Pater any day now. I say, can one of you chaps lend me £5? Something like this. Something's coming tomorrow, and you're already promising to give it to them. Bodhisattvas don't do that. You give what you've got. You don't make promises, because things can go wrong between now and tomorrow. Pater may die. The check may be lost in the post. Whatever it is, you can't promise it until you've got it. And I found that a very useful training. At first, it seemed a small thing. And then another thing is you don't give communal goods. And again, there, I found I had something to learn from Akon Rinpoche, because he would say, it might seem like nothing, but if somebody needs a paperclip, and you're not working in Samiling office, and you go in the office and nobody's there, and you take one of their paper clips to give to somebody, I said, that's not right. They need a paper clip. There's a paper clip there, sure. But it's not your paper clip to give. So I thought, gosh, this is narrow-minded, sort of, something's not right there. Then I thought about it. And then in the community, I saw it at work. People giving away stuff without even thinking of it that wasn't really theirs to give. So this attentiveness to what is ours, what is communal. And there's so many more teachings about these right generosity in the general sense of just how do you give, what's good to give. It says you don't give something if it will bring tears to the eyes of others. So I think this is mainly to do with heads of families, which were in the past the fathers. And it says, if it's going to make your wife or your children cry because you've deprived them to give to other people, then think carefully about it. Even though technically it's yours to give, if the giving of it is going to cause tears, it says, then maybe think about it. Now, giving, so all that's about giving stuff, material generosity. Giving our support to others, I think I've covered. It's not giving stuff, it's giving your time, it's giving your care, it's giving your love, and your greater and greater and greater love as you become a bodhisattva. Great. I think we do it whenever we can. The thing to look to be, how can you say, wary of, cautious of, is not making a person dependent on your love, on your care, on your time, because you're making a vulnerability. And there sometimes also we are not doing dana, we are not sweeping away ego. It's very rewarding to be somebody in somebody's life. They look to you, they look up to you, they look to you for help. Wonderful. But remember, dana is about sweeping away ego. So if that is nourishing a part of us which isn't the healthiest part, and if in them it's creating emotions, dependency, which are not helpful for them, then it's not bodhisattva giving of yourself. This is so tricky. This is so tricky. I don't have the words to just say, this is how to do it, this is how not to do it, because we're talking about one-on-one help. One person with their unique mind coming to you, the apprentice bodhisattva, with your unique mind, and then getting into quite an intense situation, because often they're opening up to you, they're relying on you, it's very intimate, it's quite personal. We have to use all of our bodhisattva training, what we know about where we're going. We need to use our meditation experience in order to handle it in a way where there aren't sticky areas and where we're not making them dependent. The Buddha gives in order that people become strong in themselves. I can't say more than that today. I don't even know if I have more time, if I could say more than that. Now, giving Dharma, then Khenpoken explains quite a bit about how to give Dharma, what to give, and so on. It gets Buddhist, it gets technical. The word Dharma actually is the Sanskrit word for things, stuff, phenomena. So it covers worldly knowledge. And we give that to alleviate suffering, of course. Worldly knowledge. Do you know how to fix the washer on my tap? Sure, I'll come and sort you out. That's the gift of Dharma, and I'll show you how to do it at the same time. But mainly we're looking at what is called transcendent Dharma, Buddha Dharma. So it says giving the Dharma This is the definition. Means to teach the unerring Dharma. Very important. To teach the appropriate Dharma. And to make sure that the fundamental points are well understood. So 3 things. First, giving the unerring Dharma means this really is what the Buddha taught. It's what your teachers taught, what you got through the lineage. It's not that mixed up with a bit of Ken's ideas. You know, we're apprentices. Until we are great bodhisattvas and Buddhas, I can't help but give you Ken's own understanding. Came through all my own filters. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to give you the original message, but it's inevitable that it's going to be colored somewhere along the line, because I only understood what poor Ken's mind can understand, even though the teacher who was teaching me may have had a much vaster picture. Poor Ken could only get this much, and I've been carrying it through time, and I offer it to you. But we try our very best not to bring in personal opinions, a personal slant. And you'll see this with Dharma teachers. Sometimes, in one way, it's good you've got their personal version, because it's usually informed and enriched by their own personal experience. But then it's only that part of a Dharma. You know, it's one wedge of a circle, like a percentage diagram, camembert of percentages. Whatever the Buddha's teaching was on this topic, somebody has really got one bit of it through their own experience. So they're pretty good at presenting that. But not the rest. So when you hear them teach, it's not full. It's not universal. And it's very helpful for some people. So then usually they end up drawing people to them who are very attracted by that, you know, maybe whatever background they've got. Now, so the unerring teachings. In some ways, a good teacher will only quote the Buddha, will only quote directly from scripture. That's faultless. That's faultless. But sometimes it is very helpful when a teacher can unpack things in a way that connects better. But anyway, the unerring teachings. And then to teach the appropriate Dharma is very, very important, because the Buddha taught so much, suited to different people at different stages of their evolution. So we can't say, the Buddha taught this, has to be good, I'm going to give it to you. Wonderful method, whatever it is. Beautiful lineage, powerful method. Here you are, I'll teach it to you. Maybe something that will ruin the person and destroy them. So we don't just give a teaching that's unerring, it needs to be suited. That's why the Buddha taught for 45 years. That's why his teachings fall into the 3 jhanas and so on and so on. He was teaching his very first main disciple, the Kashyapa, the 3 Kashyapa brothers, were already gurus. And Mahakashyapa, he had 5,000 disciples, more or less. His brothers had a couple of thousand. In the first year of the Buddha's teachings, they came to the Buddha. They saw the Buddha had what they didn't have. They converted. And they told their disciples to follow them. So that's why the Buddha suddenly had such a huge community. He had to leave Sarnath and go to Rajgir. So some of the Buddha's disciples were already accomplished meditators, yogis. Some of them were simple people, and so on and so on. And over 45 years, as people matured in his assembly, he could teach deeper and deeper topics. So a good teacher teaches what you need today. Appropriate Dharma. And then afterwards, you don't leave it at that. You need to check that the person really got it. So there's a follow-up and sometimes interaction to make sure that all's going well with the teaching or the method that was given. Then there's one sutra called the Lamp of the Moon Sutra. And this gives a very good piece of advice. I'll just read it to you about not jumping into teachings. Like somebody stops you in Samanin corridor and they say, "Oh, Ken, I've been meaning to ask you about the 5th of the 18 shunyatas." And then the people are going by on their way to the lunch queue. And then you start thinking, "Oh, they asked me. Okay, yes. Well, it's actually," Nagarjuna said, "No, you don't. You don't. You stall on purpose. It gives you time to think, what's going on here? Why are they asking this? Is this really going to help them? Isn't it better if when I respond to this, I give them better this advice or that advice?" And then you make Dharma happen in a right circumstance. You find a nice place, a quiet time, a time when they can listen to you. And then you check out 2 important things: that they have respect for the teaching and that they have respect for you as a teacher. So if it's a noisy corridor in the wrong place and the wrong time, and they're asking a question just out of intellectual curiosity or because they want fuel to argue with you afterwards, because they're coming from another point of view, and they don't respect you, then it's better not to teach. It's better to send them to somebody they will respect. And, you send them to a great Lama, then they get ushered into an interview room. It's very quiet. They're in awe. They'll take that away and think, "I got this from what's his face Rinpoche. It's really precious," rather than from Ken in a corridor, even though it's the same teaching. We need to think about it. So this is the advice from the Moon Lamp Sutra. Should someone request you to explain the Dharma, first say, "You've not studied it intensively." Don't teach straight away. You should consider their suitability. If you know the person is a worthy vessel for that teaching, then you can explain it. And if the time's right, you don't even need to wait for a request to be made. And it says then find a time, find a place where there's the right environment for the message to go across well. So I think they're the main points. If I miss something, then it will come at the beginning of next week's talk. If afterwards, I think I should really have said that. But these are the main points about generosity in general, Buddhist generosity. But the important thing I put at the beginning so that it wouldn't be rushed at the end. The greatness and the purity, the compassion, the shunyata, the primordial wisdom where there's no sense of an I and an other, interaction, the dreamlike nature of what's happening. These are what make it paramita. Only those moments are taking you to enlightenment. The rest of the moments of generosity are virtue, taking you to a better rebirth, but not to enlightenment. Not to enlightenment. Paramita takes you to the far shore. Okay, so I'll stop there and I'll do the dedication now, and then we can have time for discussion. Sonam di tamche zikpani, togne nyepe dranam pamchene, je gana jepala trupaye, sipe sole, drowa drolwarasho, janchup semjo rimpoche, ma jepanam jejochi, jepan nyampa me padam, kong ne kong do, dalwarasho.